It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Good morning to the John Fredericks Radio Network and everyone listening on the John Fredericks Radio app. Michael Patrick Leahy here, broadcasting live from our studios in downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Well, it's that time of day again, folks. It's time for the Morning Rundown, brought to you by The Glock Store, glockstore.com, located just a few miles from the airport, right here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a place to go for all of your Glock parts and accessories and Glocks and training. Well, here we go. Here's the Morning Rundown for Monday, January 13th, 2025. Number one, 7 days, 1 hour, 54 minutes, and 30 seconds until Donald J. Trump is inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. Are we going to be able to make it through these next 7 days? I don't know. It's pretty crazy. Literally, Joe Biden's trying to do everything he possibly can to make it difficult for Donald Trump. We'll get some more details on that as we go on. Number two, TikTok goes the clock on TikTok. Yes, a federal law passed, said you got to sell it by this Sunday, January 19th. That law went into effect, and they had 270 days to sell it. It's owned by the Chinese Communist Party, basically. They didn't want to sell it, and they kind of played a game of chicken with the Supreme Court. I don't think the Supreme Court's buying it, but we'll see what happens there. We'll have some reports on that. Number three, so much to report on the LA fires. That story, they continue. There's a report. One investigator found the cause of the fires. They're claiming embers from a 6-day-old fire caused by, New Year's Eve fireworks. Really? Yikes. So we got that. And we have Mark Pulliam will be joining us in the bottom of the hour. Mark lived in Los Angeles and San Diego for, 30 years. And now he's a refugee who's come here to state income tax-free Tennessee. He's an attorney, smart guy. We're going to talk about how you rebuild when basically the governance there is awful. Number four, confirmation hearings of the nominees by Donald J. Trump. Those confirmation hearings begin tomorrow. Pete Hegseth at Defense, Doug Burgum at Interior. Burgum will just sail through, of course. And then the following day, you've got a Pam Bondi, Attorney General. And the day after that, you've got Scott Bessent, Secretary of Treasury. Scott's a friend of the program. We've had him on multiple times here as a guest. And then also you've got Marco Rubio. So there you go. You've got that. Number five. Hey, this is interesting. Chuck Todd leaving NBC News. Oh, so sad, so sad. He's going to go to some startup or something. Kind of crazy. And number six, we have an update from Tom Zalestowski, who is in Ohio, who is Governor DeWine going to appoint to replace J.D. Vance in the Senate. J.D. resigned 12:01 a.m. Friday, so no senator from Ohio as we speak. And number seven, in our third hour, if we're fortunate, we'll have our good friend Stephen K. Bannon will be here. And Steve will talk a little bit about, all the things going on in Washington, D.C. He's got a big event going on. I think it's this Thursday. And I think if you want to go there, you can go there. So here we go. If you want to call us, 615-649-8477. There you go. That is the Morning Rundown for Monday, January 13th, 2025, brought to you by The Glock Store. I recently heard from Lenny McGill. He's the CEO and founder of The Glock Store. He said all of the advertising that they've done here has really helped, and we're getting a lot of uptick in sales from all the radio stations, the cities that have John Fredericks radio stations. So wonderful. For the Glock guys and gals who haven't had the opportunity to visit glockstore.com, go visit. You really should. Here's why. They have not only just every Glock in stock, they only stock the very best parts and accessories, including hard-to-find Glock factory parts like the Glock Performance Trigger. And they know these are the best products because they personally test them. Lenny McGill, if he doesn't like it, doesn't go on Glockstore.com. If he really likes a product, he features that product on his incredible YouTube channel. You got to visit this. YouTube.com/@Glockstore, YouTube.com/@Glockstore. It's great stuff. They've got 1,000 videos there of our good friend Lenny showing you how to shoot various Glocks and how to use various products. Don't forget to go to Glockstore.com, sign up for their weekly sales letters, and you'll even get a link to the latest Lenny McGill video every Wednesday afternoon. I'm proud Lenny is a friend and sponsor. Visit Glockstore.com today. You'll be glad you did, and so will I. So, there you go. Now, we're going to get to TikTok a little bit here. I love what they do at the Supreme Court. They have audio recordings. And by the way, I don't ever want to have video because all of the attorneys will be, playing to the cameras. Go with the audio. I think that's the way to go. Now, before we get to the TikTok story, Joe Biden shows he's like disconnected from reality. Here is clip 3. Joe Biden, coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Become your successor.
I don't think so. I think I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump, would have beaten Trump. It wasn't about, I thought it was important to unify the party. And when the party was worried about whether or not I was going to be able to move, I thought even though I thought I could win again, I thought it was better to unify the party, and it was the greatest honor in my life to be President of the United States, but I didn't want to be one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election. And that's why I stepped aside, but I was confident she could win.
Okay, so this is all idiocy. Oh, she could have won. Well, she didn't win. She was awful, and they only kicked you out because you were worse than she was. So, I don't know, maybe would have done better. I don't know. Probably worse, but still. No, that's just insanity speaking. We have 7 more days of insanity. Oh my goodness. Every minute is like, goes on forever and ever and ever. We can't get to January 20th soon enough. All right. I want to go back to this whole TikTok thing. And I think the Supreme Court is basically going to say, no, you got to sell it. They might give them another 30 days since it's this Sunday, but maybe 60. I don't know. Won't go beyond that. Chief Justice Roberts was very skeptical of the attorney for the Chi-Com-owned ByteDance company, Noah Francisco, former Solicitor General. Let's play this clip of Roberts basically giving it to Francisco.
So you began by saying this is a U.S. company operating in the United States.
Yes, Your Honor.
But the ultimate company that controls it, ByteDance, was found by Congress, and I quote this, to be subject to Chinese laws that require it to assist or cooperate with the Chinese government's intelligence work, quote, and to ensure that the Chinese government has the power to access and control private data that the company holds. So are we supposed to ignore the fact that the ultimate parent is in fact subject to doing intelligence work for the Chinese government?
Well, Your Honor, I don't think you are supposed to ignore that at all, but I also don't think that it changes the analysis for a couple of reasons. Look, TikTok and...
Well, just hold a second. Well, as I said, you began by saying this is a U.S. company operating in the United States, and it seems to me that you're ignoring the major concern here of Congress, which was Chinese manipulation of the content and acquisition and harvesting of the content.
Sure. And I'll start by saying that TikTok Incorporated is a United States subsidiary operating in the United States with its own set of free speech rights.
Okay, let's just stop here. I don't always agree with Justice Roberts, but those questions were spot on. And the lawyer dodging, trying to do what doesn't change the analysis. Yeah, the point is, all of that data, it's not a free speech issue. All of the data is being captured by the Chi-Coms and will be used against us. I think the Supreme Court is going to say, you got to sell it. When we come back, a little bit on the L.A. fires. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy, back after this.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of The Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Our number, 615-649-8477, 615-649-8477. Welcome to all the new listeners in West Virginia on the John Fredericks Radio Network. And, of course, welcome this morning to all of our listeners across Tennessee. WENO 760 AM here in Nashville, 730 AM KQPN in Memphis, and, of course, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and all across Virginia, and, of course, in Atlanta as well. The growing John Fredericks Radio Network. A little programming note. Yeah, we're going to be on, Apple and Roku and Fire Stick pretty soon. That's going to be fantastic. You'll have 4 hours of John Fredericks every day, 3 hours of yours truly, and maybe a little bit more. I think it's going to be fantastic. So thanks so much for listening. Now, I want to talk a little bit here. There's so much to talk about. The Los Angeles fires. And by listening to Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass, I think you can easily come to the conclusion, A, they haven't learned a thing, and B, all they do is lie. Okay. So what's the solution there? Well, there's some thoughts about that. Let's start with a fellow by the name of Rick Caruso. Rick Caruso. Now, Rick ran for mayor a couple years ago. He's a billionaire real estate developer guy. He ran for mayor a couple years ago, and he lost, I think it was like 54-46, something like that, to Karen Bass. And this guy, he's sort of Trumpian in his real estate development and a pretty straight arrow. And we're going to start off with his commentary on the LA fires, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about what he did with the properties he owns in Pacific Palisades. Here we go. Clip 2, Rick Caruso on the LA fires.
My heart goes out, obviously, to the people with their homes, and I'm watching the small businesses around us go up in flames. This is people's livelihoods, so it's devastating. But what is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of tough questions that we need to ask the mayor and the city council and our representatives and the county representatives. Why didn't you work to mitigate this? What was your brush mitigation program? I heard you earlier talking about it's been dry because there hasn't been rain. That's not the biggest problem here. The brush up in these hills that are controlled by the city and the county, I would bet you that if they haven't been handled, mitigated, pruned, removed for probably 30 or 40 years. This was a disaster waiting to happen. And what's predictable is preventable. And who's paying the price are all of these people in their homes and their businesses tonight.
Okay, so let's continue with Rick Caruso. He owned a pretty extensive retail shop development, a commercial development in Pacific Palisades. It's, I think, called Pacific Palisades Mall. It's a pretty large area. I think there were like 50 or so shops in a street and the whole deal. You know what he did? He, in anticipation of a problem, has his own private fire department. He brought in privately paid firefighters. He brought in water trucks. And as soon as this fire went up there, he put them all in there and they fought the fire. And one of the only things left standing in Pacific Palisades is this like 50 shop development owned by Rick Caruso because he spent the money. How about that? You see these stories and you go, okay, well, this was obviously preventable. There's another story. Do you see this story? A guy in Malibu. He's literally a brain surgeon. He and his son and a neighbor fought the fires. And they led, I think there were like 4 or 5 houses around his that they fought the fires. And they were prepared. They had all of the proper materials and water, et cetera. And they saved 4 or 5 houses. Now, what's interesting, this guy is really something else. He's a brain surgeon, right? He was a prepared guy, and he'd built the house a certain way so that they wouldn't have, they would be fireproof and earthquake-proof. Do you know what his exit strategy was? He's on the beach in Malibu. His exit strategy, with his son and his neighbor, if everything, literally burned up, how were they going to survive? Paddle boards. They were going to paddle out into the ocean. Now, that's a guy who was all in. That's the attitude you need. That's not the attitude that you have from the governor of California or from the mayor of Los Angeles or the fire chief there. And for that reason, Jesse Waters had a very interesting suggestion. There should be a federal takeover of all of this land. I think, 50 square miles there in Los Angeles that's been burned out. 99% of it burned out, except for these few exceptions. Here we go. Clip 7, Jesse Waters. Fed takeover.
This is biblical level destruction. And the city of LA is hosting the Olympics in 4 years. There's no way we can showcase LA to the world. A full federal takeover is needed. Invoke the Stafford Act. The state's overwhelmed. Martial law might have to be declared.
Okay. We're going to talk with Mark Pulliam, an attorney who lived in Los Angeles and San Diego for 3 decades and who now lives here in Tennessee, about the mechanism for that. Why is it needed? I'll tell you one of the reasons why it's needed. This is somebody from the Free Press. I think his name is Anthony Jeffs, who went out to that reservoir that was empty in Pacific Palisades. Here we go, clip 6.
This was supposed to be the water to put out the Palisades fire. This is the Santa Ynez Reservoir. It's the water supply basically for the Palisades. When they first started fighting the Palisades fire, they ran out of water extremely quickly. Wednesday, 3 a.m., they were basically out. And there's been a lot of talk on why this happened. So how long has this reservoir been empty for?
Since February of last year. There was no communication from the Department of Water and Power to LAFD that there was a water supply issue.
The firefighters, when they started fighting the fires, no one informed them that the reservoir was empty. This reservoir holds 117 million gallons of water. The fire department was using a water supply from 3 backup tanks, each one only holding 1 million gallons of water. They say it's closed for maintenance to repair the lid that's on top of it. I don't know a lot about reservoir maintenance, but there's literally no construction materials or vehicles anywhere in sight. Also, with a reservoir like this, you can refill it or start to refill it. So another question is, if they saw the Santa Ana winds were coming and we have this remarkably dry wet season, why was there no attempt to start refilling it back up? I know I threw a lot out there, but... Okay, all very good. Now, look, that's what you call journalism. It's from this group called the Free Press. Journalism, local journalism in LA, it got the same problem that local journalism all over the country has. You know, you got these airhead leftist
television broadcasters who, don't have much of a thought in their mind, just kind of parroting whatever the talking points are from the local elected officials. You got that going on, which doesn't really get to the point. In L.A., they've had the Los Angeles Times, which for years has been, leftist central. A billionaire mega doctor from Korea has taken it over, but they've missed a lot of this stuff. So Free Press, Barry Weiss, who used to report for the New York Times, has moved out to L.A. and is running the Free Press. I think they're doing great work, by the way. And so they're actually doing reporting. And that reporter, I think his name is Anthony Jeffs, was out there doing what you really ought to do. Let's look at the facts. Here is the problem. You ready? The problem is that all of the elected officials, Democrats in California, are kind of like the classic Soviet bureaucrats, the commies, right? The whole story is, they pretend to pay us and we pretend to work, right? They're pretending. They're not doing anything. They're just up there yakking away. They can't get anything done. That's why when we come back, we'll talk to Mark Pulliam about ways to fix that. What can Donald Trump, the ultimate real estate guy, do to fix L.A.? Back after this with Mark Pulliam.
My fellow Americans, I have to tell you about my good friends at D.T. McCall & Sons. They have furniture and appliances and a lot more. They've been family-owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years, and they're not going to rip you off. No hidden charges, no delivery charges, no charges for all of the crazy things. These are sick people at the lumber yards. These are very sick people. They charge you for cords and hoses and haul off. They charge you for all of these things. They call them hidden charges. It's the type of surprise that you don't want to see. It's like an October surprise, but it's worse. D.T. McCall & Sons, they're not going to do that. They're great people. They're going to give you a great deal. With locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin, D.T. McCall & Sons will give you the deal of your life. Check them out today or go to dtmccalls.com.
Impersonator not endorsed by Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. We welcome to our Zoom Newsmaker line right now our very good friend Mark Pulliam. Mark is a retired attorney who spent his entire career as an attorney in California, lived in Los Angeles, lived in San Diego, saw the light, moved to state income tax-free Tennessee, where he's been a strong conservative voice for several years. Mark, welcome, and just your initial thoughts on these terrible fires in Los Angeles.
Well, good morning, Michael, and glad to be with you this morning via Zoom for the first time. So the tragedy in Los Angeles is of horrific and historic proportions. It may be the worst natural disaster in California history and may become one of the worst natural disasters in American history. So far, we have 24 dead and have a area of devastation that's 62 square miles, which is unimaginable. Anybody that's seen the images on TV, it looks like Dresden, Germany, or even Hiroshima. It's truly an apocalyptic event. And while people are still, we have 150,000 people under evacuation orders. So I don't want to be morbid or talk about this catastrophe while people are still dealing with it and recovering from it. But at the same time, we have to be sober in viewing this and analyze what went wrong, what needs to be done, how do we deal with this situation and future situations as they arise, and learn the lessons that we can from this tragedy.
You know, my thoughts on this are drastic action is needed. And let me just kind of tell you my view on it. So it's 62 square miles. That's like 6 miles by 10 miles. That's a lot. I think it might be spread out a little bit differently. But here's the thing. Of that 62 square miles, I think like 99% of it's rubble. Do I have that right? I mean, here
99% of what?
99% of that 62 square miles is like rubble. There are isolated stories like Rick Caruso, right? Had his own private firefighting equipment and team, and he saved, I think, like a 50 store retail development in Pacific Palisades. There was a brain surgeon who saved his house in Malibu, a couple other people who kind of were prepared for it. But beyond that, it looks like it's complete and utter devastation.
Yes, it is, and it's unfortunate. Now, the circumstances in Southern California, it's sort of a natural tinderbox for these kinds of fires, and these fires have existed since Juan Cabrillo stepped foot on California shores in the 1500s. It's an arid area. They get very little rain. All the water they get is imported from Northern California as runoff from the snowpack in the Sierras. And you have these canyons that get overgrown with brush. You have the Santa Ana winds that come blasting in at horrific speeds. They're dry, they're hot, and it's like a natural furnace for this material. So in order to avoid these kinds of wildfires, it requires a lot of detailed precautions, and you have to have disaster plans, and you have to be able to respond to it. And this is where Unfortunately, the state of California and the city of Los Angeles fell short. They failed to take the necessary measures while they were spending billions of dollars providing medical care to illegal aliens and providing housing to the homeless. They cut the budget for the Los Angeles Fire Department. Gavin Newsom cut funding from wildfire prevention. And the mayor of Los Angeles unaccountably was attending some junket in Ghana, even though there had been warnings that this event was likely to occur given the weather conditions. So now there will, and the worst thing of all is that California, which is a prior approval state where insurance companies cannot charge rates until they've attained the prior approval of the California Insurance Commissioner, denied rate increases to homeowners carriers that were trying to cover their risk for these wildfires. They said, no, you can't raise your premium. So State Farm and other companies got out of the market. And so some upwards of 40% or more of Pacific Palisades homeowners were uninsured at the time of this fire. And so it's bad enough to have your house and everything in it lost in a fire. But then when you don't have any insurance, it's an absolute disaster. So these people are going to be coming, asking the federal government to bail them out. And there's going to be a temptation for the federal government to do so. California is a big state. There's a lot of voters there. We want to appear to be kind and charitable and generous. But at the same time, bailing out people who made mistakes leading to a catastrophe creates a moral hazard. If there's not accountability for bad decisions, and in fact, if bad decisions are rewarded, you will only get more bad decisions. So the question I think that the Trump administration has, because this is going to get dumped in their lap, even though they had nothing to do with the circumstances leading up to this. And in fact, President Trump warned the state of California that you need to remove this dead brush or else that you've created a tinderbox for a fire. But this is going to get dumped in their lap, and they have to decide, how are we going to respond to this? And if we do provide extraordinary disaster relief above and beyond what FEMA would ordinarily dispense in the ordinary course of business, what kind of strings do we need to put on this? And I think the same kind of analysis has to go into all of the federal funding that goes into fixing America's broken cities, because most of our cities are broken, that if we're going to have something that's the equivalent of a Marshall Plan to restore the greatness of America's cities, and you can't make America great again if America's cities are not great. The question is, how do you accomplish that without throwing away money and punishing Americans who did not participate in these mistakes by forcing them to subsidize the mistakes that were made in California?
So you lived in California for many, many years. You lived mostly in San Diego, but briefly, I guess, in Los Angeles. And when I look at this, I see totally incompetent political leaders who basically are in the business of going on television and yapping, but never accomplishing anything. So Gavin Newsom, one example. Karen Bass, another example, right?
Yes.
They are unable to look at reality and take action. So, for instance, the Santa Ynez Reservoir, which would the water for Pacific Palisades was empty for almost a year, and they did nothing to fill it up. Gavin Newsom got rid of dams because of that would have provided more water flowing into L.A. Because of some smelt fish and because he wanted to have the local Native American tribes be able to fish salmon. All these things are stupid. The things they do are stupid. And so the question is, when you were living there, right, you looked at local and state politicians constantly doing stupid things. My question to you is, just giving Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, money will do nothing to solve the problem. I think a more robust approach would be to declare these 62 square miles basically in a certain category of land that would be taken over by the federal government to rebuild it for a period of time, and tell the state government to get the heck out of it and the city government to get the heck out of it, and have Trump appoint Rick Caruso to fix it. Now, that seems to make common sense. Are there legal impediments to such an approach?
I think I understand where you're going with this, and I think I come out wanting the sort of same final objective, but the federal government does not have the constitutional authority to take over the most populous city in the United States, or major parts of the largest state in the United States. And I'm not sure that that's a good precedent given our commitment to federalism.
Let me step back.
Forth.
I think this is why we have you on, right? Because you're a very accomplished attorney, and you understand the concepts of federalism. Given that, look, here's what I think. Rick Caruso and Donald Trump are real estate development guys. They can get the job done. The state government is going to do nothing but goof it up. And the city government
waste any money that the federal government gives us.
Yeah, and they'll spend it on homelessness. I mean, that's what they'll do. I mean, we've seen this before. Is there a mechanism that could be used that could accomplish what I'm describing here, a Fed takeover asterisk, that would be in compliance with the Constitution?
I think so. That the federal government can place strings on funding, which cities and states can either accept or reject. But if they accept the money, it comes with the strings. This is how the Department of Education has insinuated itself into K-12 schools all across the country. Now, I lived in Los Angeles for 4 years, began my law practice in Los Angeles.
Now, where did you live in L.A., Mark?
Oh, a couple of places. One close in outside the city, Los Feliz area, and then in the San Fernando Valley. But the elected officials have become much more stupid in the last 30 years. It's almost shocking, and they cater to
Hold it. That's the quote of the day. Elected officials in California have become much more stupid over the past 30 years. We're going to have to highlight that.
Well, it's true. So how do you end it? But it's not just California. You look in Chicago, you look at Baltimore, you look at New York. They're stupid everywhere because they cater to special interests, loud factions of the far left Democratic Party, ignoring the needs of ordinary people, taxpayers who live there. And we've turned our cities into hellholes. And Los Angeles right now is a hellhole that's on fire.
Mark Pulliam, the great comedian Ron White used to say, you can't fix stupid. But when you come back, let's figure out how we can fix stupid in Los Angeles. Back with Mark Pulliam after this.
Hey, I'm Governor Bill Lee, and I want to talk to you about an important education bill in Tennessee. Everyone knows that education has the power to change the trajectory of a child's life forever. And anyone who's raised a child knows that each one's different in their educational needs, and their learning styles, and their talents. The fact is, parents know their own children best. They know what's best for their education and their future. That's why I'm here to talk to you about Tennessee's Education Freedom Act. It empowers parents across our state to use their tax dollars to choose the school that allows their child to thrive, regardless of zip code or income, all while making significant investments in Tennessee's public education. If you want to learn how you can help make the Education Freedom Act a reality in Tennessee, go to educationfreedomact.com and write or call your state representatives. It's educationfreedomact.com.
This ad is paid for by Job Creators Network.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back on our Zoom Newsmaker line right now. Our very good friend Mark Pulliam, a very accomplished attorney, lived in Los Angeles and San Diego for a long time before he saw the light and moved to state income tax-free Tennessee. Mark, if I were to tell you during the break, I received a call from Donald Trump, and he said, Mike, I was listening to you and Mark Pulliam, and that Pulliam guy makes a lot of sense. I'd like you to tell Mark to get on a plane and come down to Mar-a-Lago tonight, because I want him to put my plan together for Los Angeles. If I were to tell you that, what would you say your plan for Donald Trump is?
Okay, so here's how you fix stupid in these cities and blue states. Is you create a organization like DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, but it's more like a Department of Government Efficacy.
Well, no. It's the Department of Fix Stupid.
Fix Stupid. And so you say to these states and these cities, we will help you get out of this mess, but only if you conform to a list of best practices that we will develop that basically eliminate some of the causes for the high crime, these wildfires, et cetera, these disasters, homeless epidemics, et cetera. And at the top of the list would be that for a city or state to receive extraordinary federal funds, they would have to eliminate all diversity, equity, and inclusion type programs, which includes race-conscious hiring and all of that other silly stuff, restore meritocracy to government employment, and this is especially important in public safety functions. We've seen a lot.
So Mark, let me just say so here's how Los Angeles would respond to that. Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom. Oh no, we can't do that. We're not going to do that. I mean, you can see that, you can hear that right now. So what happens then? I mean, I understand your point.
I'm not so sure that would be their reaction.
Really?
And the mayor is on the verge of firing the Los Angeles fire chief, who is this overweight lesbian who was appointed for that reason. And you have huge.
Hey, come on now.
Well, it's true.
Even overweight lesbians need jobs.
Well, they should get a job. There's the top 3 people in the LA Fire Department are all overweight lesbians, and who tell the public that if you're trapped in a fire and you're too heavy for one of us to carry you out, that's your problem.
Okay, so you're thinking that when it comes to money, Bass and Newsom might change their attitude a little bit.
They have to. Their city is in ruins. That they have taxpayers and voters who wish they hadn't voted for Karen Bass. Rick Caruso was on the ballot. And so but if you have inept public safety forces, you're going to have crime, you're going to have out of control fires. So you need to fix that. We need to tell them that you cannot be a sanctuary city that provides sanctuary for homeless, for illegal aliens, and provide them with medical care.
But did you see, Mark, did you see this? So some homeowners saw a guy with a blowtorch during the fires, walking around trying to start a fire. And they basically apprehended him, gave him to the local police. He's an illegal alien. And then the police said, wait for that, we don't have probable cause to charge him. Are you kidding me? That's the attitude. Did you see that?
And that's the problem we have. And so I think we will find ultimately that one or more of these fires was caused by a homeless encampment in one of these canyons. Mm-hmm. But you cannot have this type of lawlessness in the cities and not have resulting problems. I think cities and states that have cut the funding for the police and fire department, and the city of Los Angeles did cut $17 million out of the fire department budget. The rules have to be, we're not going to help you until you help yourself, and you have to restore funding that's been cut from public safety.
But the pressure is going to be, tens of thousands of people have lost their homes, right? So while this back and forth is going on, these tens of thousands of people, don't have a place to stay. It's going to take a long time to build it back up. There's going to be pressure there.
And so FEMA can provide short-term, but we're talking about extraordinary.
Yeah.
These people are going to be asking for federal loans, the equivalent of mortgages to rebuild. And I think that these displaced homeowners are going to become allies of Donald Trump because they understand how this calamity occurred, that we can't have prosecutors letting people go. We can't have jurisdictions that allow people arrested for crimes to walk away without posting bail.
I've got a last question. We got a minute left, Mark.
Yeah.
This calamity inspired by stupid Democrat elected officials in California, is it sufficiently bad to change the voting behavior of people in California, which has been, 2-1 Democrat for the most part? What do you think?
They're not going to be able to blame this on Donald Trump, and so they're going to have to blame somebody. And you hear a lot of people out there in the corporate media trying to say that this is all climate change. California has been an arid, fire-prone state for hundreds of years. This is a calamity.
In 2028, what's the breakdown, R versus D, in the next presidential election in California? What's your guess?
It's very lopsided D.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change. It should, but I don't think it will. Mark Pulliam, thanks for joining us today. Excellent insight.
Thanks for having me.
All right. When we come back, Ben Cunningham with the Nashville Tea Party will join us here on the Michael Patrick Leahy Show.